Welcome to our Writer's Toolbox workshop, where I will introduce you to the main functions of our online tool. You have the opportunity to navigate through your account today, or if you'd prefer, you can simply watch as I demonstrate and model the functions today. There is quite a lot of information in today's session, so you may wish to take some notes. Now, you may have noticed we are in seminar mode at the moment, so if you do have questions throughout today's session, please make note of them, as we will be hosting a Q&A at the end of the session. Okay, let's get started. You should be logged into your account and starting on a page that looks like this one. This is your teacher dashboard page. I'm going to be jumping between a teacher account and a student account today so that you'll be able to see some of the key differences. So if I jump over to my student account, you'll see that this is their home dashboard page. It's a little bit different to yours. But what is really important to know is that you have the same 8 icons that run along the top of your page. So in terms of general navigation around the tool, you and your students navigate in a very similar way. Now, a couple of these icons do slightly different things for students than what they do for teachers. But in terms of just getting around the tool, you can definitely direct your students to navigate the same way that you're navigating. The first icon we're going to have a look at today is actually the last one along the top here. It is the icon that has the avatar's face in it. Now, I'm going to show you from a student's perspective first. When they click into their account icon and go into account details, there's not a lot here that they can do. So they really shouldn't be spending too much time here. But the options they have are to change their avatar and to change their password. Now, initially, students will be set with a very generic password. So if they would like to change that to something a little bit more secure, this is where they can do that. And they can also set themselves a personal writing goal. They can choose what it is that they would like to focus on, and then when they come back to their dashboard page, that is what is being tracked down here in this bottom right-hand corner. It will show them where they started, where they're currently at, and what they're aiming to achieve in regards to this particular writing goal. Now, as a teacher, let's go in and have a look at the same icon. Please click into your account icon, the one with the avatar's face on it, and we're going into account details. And you can see you've got some similar options here as well. You can change your avatar. You can change your password away from that generic teacher password if you would like something a little bit more secure. But the most important thing that we need to do here is to click into Edit Account Details. We're going to set this writing ability level. This should be set to match the year level of the students that you are working with. If you are using the tool with a single year level, this is quite straightforward, just set it to that level. However, if you teach across more than one year level, we advise that you change this setting accordingly. This will ensure that you are seeing the same thing that your students are seeing. I'm setting mine to year 7, so this is the view that you will see throughout the workshop. Please choose the year level that you would like your account set on. You can come back and change that whenever you would like, but we'll save that writing ability level now. Then let's return home to the dashboard. Okay, let's get in and have a look at something a little bit more exciting. Now, I'm back on my student account, but again, you can navigate the same way that I am here. We're going to go in and have a look at the writing tools behind the pink icon. You should be seeing the exact same thing that I'm seeing here. So again, both a teacher and a student will see the same things when they navigate to the writing tools icon. And what we have here is an option of 8 different writing tools to choose from. What we want to do is select the one that best matches with the style of writing that we're doing. So for example, if I was going to do some narrative writing, I could select the novelist, because built into that tool, there are scaffolds and structures and tips that will support the nuanced writing of a narrative. Same thing if you are writing a report. The report writer is set up to support this style of writing. More extended pieces of writing across any subject area can be done in the classic essay tool. So you can see it's about choosing the tool that will best support the type of writing that you're going to be doing. Now, we don't have time to look at all of these tools today, so we're going to go in and have a look at the free writer tool because this is our generic option. It allows you to do any type of writing you would like in here. So if we click into Mr. Mandela, into free writer, you can see the setup here is at the left-hand side is our writing page document. And we have a lot of the normal Word functionality available here as well. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have all the different tools that are available to us. Importantly, this side of the screen is able to be customized. Now, I always recommend to my students that before they start writing, they should come over to this side of the screen and do this setup. Because for some students, if there's too much going on over here, it can be a little bit distracting, or for some, a little bit overwhelming. So, for example, if I was not responding to an image today, I might remove this images box because I don't need it. There might be other things that I would like to keep, but I just don't want them taking up as much room, so I can minimize some of these. And then I can just move things around. Now, the box that I would generally suggest they keep towards the top here is the sentences box. And if you're looking for yours, it might be sitting on the simple sentence like mine is, but it might actually be sitting on a different sentence style. So if you can't find this exact box, look for one that is set up in the same way, where it has a description of the sentence style and then a few dot point examples there. Once you've found that one, just make sure that you've got it sitting up here towards the top of your screen as well. Now, if you're not terribly familiar with Writer's Toolbox as a program, we teach 12 different sentence styles. The simple sentence is one of them. But if you would like to access all 12 of them here, there's a button that sits just at the bottom of this sentences box. It's the one that has all of the dots in it. It looks a bit like a waffle. So if we click onto the waffle button, there are our 12 different sentence style options. And we can then click into any of these. So I might click onto the preposition start, for example. And now we have the same setup, but for this sentence style. It gives me an explanation of the sentence and some examples there to refer to. Now, there's a few other things available within this sentences box. Let's have a look along this bottom row here. The first button there is a drop-down arrow. And if I click onto that, it gives me some vocab words to support the writing of this sentence style. There's a nice list of prepositions for the students to utilise. Now, they will be matched to the year level for the student as well. These are the ones that it is providing at a year 7 level. It will alter depending on the level that the student is set at. Now, if I move across those numbers, I will also get a set of examples from published texts. These show real authors using this particular sentence style. So it's great for the students to see the range of different ways that this sentence style can be applied, and they'll recognise some of the authors and texts as well. Okay, the next button along looks like a play button. It is a play button. When I click onto that one, it brings me to a video. Now, these videos are short and snappy and engaging. They're about 2 or 3 minutes long. And they are Dr. Ian Hunter, who's the founder of the program, explaining this sentence style to the students. He talks about what it is, and he gives some examples, and talks about why and how we might use this sentence style in our writing as well. So they're a really great way to introduce students to these sentence styles and to do that regular revision of them as well. And great for you when you're first learning about some of these sentence styles too. Okay, we talked about the waffle button. We know what that one does. The last button here, the plus symbol, when we click onto that, it provides us with an interactive scaffold that breaks down this sentence style into its parts. We can write directly into this and we just follow through the instructions. It tells me to start with the preposition bit and then place a comma. So I would write that in here. Then I can click onto the next section and it tells me the next thing to do. So now I'm going to place my subject and finish the rest of my sentence. So if students need that scaffolding, it's there for them. They can, of course, just be writing directly into this document. That's absolutely fine as well. But for students that need that extra level of scaffolding, it's always there for them. Now, there are some other tools that are available to bring down on this right-hand side as well. Or if you have closed something down and you think, actually, I really need that, you can come up to the top of the screen here and there is a Tools button. And when we click onto that one, you can see that the ones that are ticked are the ones that are already sitting here. But I've got some other options I can bring down as well. There are a couple of really handy ones. The sentence length tracker is great, especially for students who are struggling with their sentence control. That may be reflected in a lot of run-on sentences or underdeveloped sentences that just aren't long enough as well. So, as they're writing, this is tracking their average sentence length and encouraging them to be sitting in this happy green zone, which for Year 7 students, we encourage to be around the 16 to 20 word mark as an average. The other great tool that the students really love is the sentence spinner. It is exactly as the name suggests. We give it a spin and it will spin up one of our 12 sentence styles. And if they can't remember what that is or they're not sure, they can just click onto the sentence style itself. And you can see my sentences box has now changed to reflect that. So the support, the reminder is always there for them. The sentence spinner is great, especially when students get stuck on a run of simple sentences. And we're looking to encourage them to explore a wider range of sentence styles, which we will talk more about in just a moment. Let's see what the students can do from this point on. Now that they've done a little bit of writing, they can see down the bottom of the page what their word count is. And then just next to that word count, you'll see there's this little person right down the very bottom of the writing page. And when I hover over this person, it turns green. Now, if I click onto that person, it will actually read my text aloud that I have in this document. That can be a really useful part of a student's editing process because, of course, we know that sometimes when students read over their own work, they read what they think is there rather than what is actually there. So this will read what is actually there to them. They can listen, see if it makes sense, see if it flows. But the much more exciting part of the editing process is for our students to access our immediate feedback. And you may have already found this button, but if you haven't, we're coming up to the top of the page again and there is a feedback button. It is the red one that looks like it's got a stock market symbol in it. And when we click on to the red feedback button, we get some immediate feedback. Now, what has happened here is that the AI has analysed all of the different elements of our writing to provide this immediate feedback to us. And it's set out in a number of different sections. Firstly, you will get at least one thing that is going well in your writing. Even if the piece of work is still very much in its early, more average stages, you will get at least something positive to acknowledge and to encourage. Then, below that, you will generally get one or two things that it is suggesting need to be improved. And these aren't just random things. It doesn't pluck things out of the air to feed back to the students. In its analysis of this piece of work, it identifies the one or two things that are going to have the most immediate impact on improving this piece of work. So, if you have a look at mine, you can see the two things that it is suggesting. Firstly, that I need to increase my average sentence length. So remember I said for a Year 7 student, which is what my account is set on, we want to aim for 16 to 20 words per sentence, but mine is currently sitting on 13. The other thing that it is telling me here is that there is no way my paragraph is yet long enough. So it gives me a set word count that I want to aim for. And if I now go and address these two things, if I go and add some more words to lengthen my paragraph, and I focus on extending these sentences a little bit more as well, then I could click on that feedback button again, and it would then update to the next one or two things that are going to have the next most immediate impact on improving my work. So students can go through this process multiple times and it will continue to just drill down further and further into their work. Now, what this is all feeding into is the overall writing strength percentage. You can see mine is sitting on 88% at the moment. If I applied these suggestions, then that writing strength percentage would increase. And if I continued that process, I would be aiming to get this writing strength percentage as high as I can. Now, one thing that is really important for the students to understand with this feedback is that the tool is not giving them feedback on what they're writing, it's giving them feedback on how they're writing. So, in terms of the content itself and how well that content is meeting the requirements of a task or a criteria, that still sits with the teacher. But what we find is that if students utilise this feedback and go through this process independently, by the time the work reaches you as the teacher, the quality of it is so much higher. Your focus can then be on the content and really drilling down with that because the expression of it is much higher quality. Now, the other thing that the students get as part of this feedback, you can see down the bottom here, is a sentence graph that reflects which of the 12 sentence styles they have used and how frequently they've used them as well. So I get this great visual straight away. I can see that I've got a few sentence styles here and then another one here. And as we move across this graph, these sentence styles are increasing in their complexity and in their sophistication. So what you sometimes find is that students will naturally sit on this left-hand side of the graph. But what we want to encourage them to do is to be exploring sentences across the whole breadth of the graph. It's not about replacing the left-hand side with the right-hand side, because these sentence styles are really important to our writing as well. But it's about building what we call fluency, which is using a wide range of sentence styles in our writing to express our ideas and to engage our reader as well. So if you've got quite capable writers, then this is really where you will be directing them to, because they can do a lot of work here. A lot of experimentation with seeing which sentence styles work and what impact they will have on their writing. Just as a side note as well, some schools use this overall writing strength percentage as a bit of a benchmark. So they might say to their students, right, I'm not going to have a look at your work and give it feedback until it reaches a minimum of 80% or whatever that number might be. Now, that's not necessarily a strategy that works for everyone, but that is one example of how some of our schools are using this feedback to their benefit. Okay, I'm going to go back home again. However, I'm going to go back into writing tools one more time. I just want to show you another element of this. You can see that before we go into our writing tools, we've also got these options here. And this is going to give us a process to get to our writing. You can see the writing step is always automatically selected. So I don't need to come and choose that one. But if I want to go through a more extended writing process that includes my create and plan steps, then I can tick these two icons as well. And then when I go back into FreeWriter, I'll go into the same one so that we can see the difference. It now takes me through a whole process, a sequence of steps to get to my writing. And I'm just going to demonstrate this one really quickly. So if you want to be navigating at the same time, please do, but otherwise feel free to just sit back and watch how this works. Now, these are all things that you will already be doing with your students. It's mind mapping and it's planning. But within the tool, it's set up in a really nicely streamlined way. Each step speaks to the next step. So by the time the students get to their writing, if they've done these other steps well, they'll see quite quickly that it makes the writing step a whole lot easier. So this is all interactive. We click into the bubbles and pop a central topic in. Now, I'm just going to go for something very generic today and hopefully not too contentious. Dogs are the best pets. Let's go with that as an example. I'm now going to do the generation of ideas. So students could be doing this independently on their own accounts, but it's also a really lovely one to project up onto your board and do collaboratively as a class. So let's generate those ideas. Now we just click into the bubbles again, and students might say things like dogs are loyal, they're intelligent, easy to be trained perhaps. They are active, so they keep us active as well. They might just say, well, dogs are really cute. They might say, actually, cats are better, which is okay. We're just generating ideas at the moment. We'll take anything. So we could go and fill all of those bubbles if we wished. The next really important step though, before they move on to the planning, is to apply some judgment to these ideas, because generally we wouldn't want them talking about all 8 of those ideas in their writing. So we're going to encourage them to select their best ideas. And depending on what they're about to do, it might just be one. If they're writing one paragraph, you might just say, right, select your best idea now that you're going to focus on. Or if it's a more extended piece of writing, then we may be choosing 3 best ideas. So the way that this works is we just grab onto our star and we drag it on over. So we say, right, that's my best idea, and that's my second best, and I'm going to go with that one as my 3rd best idea. So you can see they're all sitting here now. To move on to the next step, we come up to the top of the page. You can see the create step is highlighted, and I'm now moving to the plan step. So when I click onto this one, 2 things happen here. You can see that it has brought across my mind map for me. Even the ideas that I didn't select are still there. So if I want to revisit them, I can. But what it has done over here is organize those 3 best ideas into this structure for me. And because I selected 3, it has also thrown on an introduction and a conclusion for me. It thinks that I'm clearly going to be writing an extended piece here. You probably want an intro and a conclusion. If I didn't though, I could just delete them. Now I can still play around with the order here. I might decide, right, I think I'm just going to go with 2 body paragraphs here. I might get rid of that 3rd one. Then I might think, actually, it would be a better order if I do that one and then that one. So you can still play with it. Once you've got that structure set, we click into the bubble itself. Now we've got a paragraph planning card, and it asks us to do 3 key things. The first one is to think about what we're actually trying to achieve in this paragraph. It gives me this sentence to complete, and you really want to encourage students to finish this sentence in a grammatically correct way, because if they do, it will really help them in their writing step, which we'll see in a moment. So I might put something like this. In this paragraph, I'm trying to show or prove or explain that dogs are the best pets because they encourage us to be active. Then we're going to collate our key evidence that we're going to use in support of this argument. So they might have to stop here and go off and do some further research or reading or discussion. And then they might come back and say, I'm going to use a statistic here. Perhaps 82% of dog owners walk at least twice a week. They might find a good quote from an expert. They might give some examples of specific dog breeds that are really active. You get the idea. The last thing that it asks for here is to select which paragraph structure we're going to use. Now, I'm going to talk more about that in just a moment. I'm actually going to leave that here because I can do it in the next step as well. So I would go through and do that planning for each of my different paragraphs. And now when I click over to my writing step, you can see that it has brought across my mind map of ideas. It's also brought across my planning. If I click onto this active one, There's the planning notes that I just filled in. So it's all sitting here ready to go for me. Now, the other really important box that we didn't look at earlier, we looked at this one, our sentences one, but you can see underneath that I've also got a paragraph version. Mine is sitting on the multi-purpose introduction, and it works in the same way as the sentences box. If I want to have a look at all my options, I come down to that waffle button at the bottom here with all the dots in it. Click onto that, and there are my 10 different paragraph options. Now, just let me give a little bit of clarification here, because sometimes people see 10 and get a little bit concerned. Yes, we've got 10 different paragraph structures. We've got an introduction, a conclusion, and 8 different body paragraph structures. But the reason for that is that we ask our students to write for so many different purposes, and then we often just give them one paragraph structure, like a peel or a teal or another variation. And we sort of hope that that structure is going to work for all of those different purposes. And a lot of the time it doesn't. It doesn't allow the students to fully surface their thoughts in an appropriate way. So we have paragraph structures that meet a range of different purposes that allow students to surface their thoughts in a range of ways and that increase the level of depth that they can achieve as well. So just very quickly, so that you get a bit of an idea, along the top row here, these are where we start. We bring in these paragraph structures at a primary level. We would then move to the second row, which are more intermediate structures. We've got a great scientist paragraph option here, which is really great for short response answers as well. A slam dunk, which is a really great persuasive structure. Then we start to cross over into senior level structures here, such as the better quote, and then the curveball and philosopher, which are our higher order thinking paragraphs. Now, as an example, for this task here, where I'm writing about dogs being the best pets, I might choose something like a lawyer. You can see that the names for our paragraph structures are really accessible for students. I think with most students, if you said, well, what does a lawyer do? They would probably say they argue, they present evidence, or they try to prove a point. And that's exactly what the lawyer paragraph does. It's about presenting one argument in a really clear way, backed up with some evidence. So you can see when I've clicked on the lawyer here, it gives me a breakdown of the structure. And then again, I've got these same buttons along the bottom. The drop-down arrow gives me some examples of this paragraph structure. And again, they are year level appropriate examples. The play button gives me access to a video once again, a few minutes of Dr. Ian Hunter explaining everything we want to know about this paragraph structure. And then the plus symbol this time gives me a full scaffold for the whole paragraph. You can see it breaks it down into its parts. And along the way, it is giving me hints and tips, suggestions for how to write this paragraph. So just quickly, if I can demonstrate how it might work, the first part here is just to state my point, to be really direct. And if I think back to my notes, that's what I did in the what are you trying to achieve part. So I could actually just come across here and copy and paste that in. And I might make some small edits, but that works really well for that first sentence. Then the second part is why it matters. Why is this point so important? Why should I care? And it gives a suggestion of using an adverb start sentence here. And if I can't remember what that is, I can come over to my sentences box and find my adverb start sentence and just get that little reminder. I might say something like, importantly, staying active is crucial to maintaining good health and well-being. Now to the evidence section. It tells me how to start it. It says, for a nice cohesive link, start with, for example. And I have already planned my evidence. So again, I could just come over and steal that statistic and throw it in there, and maybe make some edits as I go. I would continue to fill in all of the parts here. Once I've completed it, I can either preview it, which just removes the scaffolding, so now I can see it as a complete paragraph and I can check that it flows. And when I'm ready, I can hit Insert and it will drop it into that document I'm building behind. If I was then going on to my next paragraph about dogs being intelligent, I would go through that process again. I'd come over, click on my notes, I could bring up another scaffold, or I could just come over and write directly into that document as well. So essentially, when the students are using the writing tools functions, they've got scaffolding always available to them. You may wish to pull back on that scaffolding as they progress. They can always just refer to the information over here as well, rather than using the actual scaffolding and the build of it. They can just be referring to the structure and writing directly into that document instead. Okay, I'm going to go back home again and we will move on from the writing tools. Now, where does that work go? I didn't save it at all, but everything auto-saves in the program. Both teachers and students have a work folder. It is the orange icon with the box of files. And when I go in here, you'll see my most recent piece of work is sitting right there. There's the one that I did immediately before it. So they can easily access their recent work. And then down here, they can create folders to organise their work. They could create folders for different subjects, weeks, terms, whatever you would like. And you, as their teacher, can access these folders as well. I'll show you where to do that a little bit later. To organise their work into those folders, it's literally just drag and drop. It's a really quick and easy system. Now, while I'm still on my student account, let me jump in and show you the daily challenge. It is under the target icon, the first one here. And it is exactly as the name suggests. It is a little daily writing task for the students to do. It is always centred around an image, accompanied by a task outline. And these are intended to be fun and engaging writing tasks for the students. It is about giving them the opportunity to practice their writing skills without that burden of content that they often feel. So get in there, practice all the things that we've been looking at, practice your sentence styles, but let's do it in a way that's a little bit more relaxed. And these are only intended to be 5 or 10-minute writing tasks. Some schools do this first thing in the morning or after lunch as a settling activity. You can use these however you wish. What is really great about the daily challenge is that they're going to get that consistent writing practice, and you'll be able to see their progression throughout the term as well. As you can see with the student account, they get the writing document and all of the writing tools here available to them. But if I jump in as a teacher, which you might have already done, you'll see that yours is set up a little bit differently. You just have the large image and the large task outline. So the idea there is for you to project this up onto your board. We have a lot of schools who prefer their students to do the daily challenge not on the online tool, but in their books, so that they're still getting that really important handwriting practice. But if you would like the same option as your students, you can just click onto this demonstrate button in the top right-hand corner of your screen, and you've got the same version. So if you want to be doing this at the same time as your students and do some really great modelling, then you've got both options available to you. Okay, next icon, and this will be a pretty quick one. We won't go into too much detail here, but just so that you're aware of what this one does, let's have a quick look at the performance icon. It is the button that looks the same as the feedback button that we used earlier, the red one with the stock market symbol. And what is being provided to you here is your first point of access to the data. Now, if you have a standard teacher account, you will be seeing class usage here, and it will reflect the work from students in all of your classes that you have on the tool. So say you have 3 different classes, this will be the cumulative data for all 3 of those classes. You can also see this for individual classes, which we'll have a look at in just a moment. People with leadership rights will be able to see this data from a whole school perspective. There's also some really great analysis graphs in here as well that are able to be filtered by year level and class. The other thing that you have available here, which you may or may not want to have a look at, is your own performance data. So any work that you do into the tool will feed into this one. It's got nothing to do with your students this time. This is just you and your writing. So if you want to see how you're going and set yourself some writing goals, then you've got that data available to you. The students, when they go into that performance icon, will also see this for themselves. So if you would like to get the students to do some goal setting or some target setting based on their own data, then they've got this access there as well. When it comes to developing our students' writing, it's important for them to have engaging and meaningful ways to learn and apply these skills. Our learning journeys are the central point where students can go to learn all about these writing skills, to practice these writing skills, and to be assessed on them as well. So let's check out the learning journey via the blue icon. Now, earlier I set my account to year 7. So if you are also on year 7, you should be seeing the exact same thing on your screen right now. If you set your account to a different year level, you will be seeing a different background, but the same general setup. Every year level has its own unique learning journey from prep through to grade 12, and they are all set up in this same way with 10 different stages. As you can see here, my whole map is open and I can go into any stage I would like. Or you may prefer to lock it down and just restrict the students' access. I'll show you how you can manage that shortly. But for now, I'm going to jump into stage 1, and you can see within this stage, there are a number of modules. There's a progression in the writing skills within these learning journeys, which means that the students are building their skills as they go. Now, I'm going to go into the adverb start sentence. I'll show you that one as an example. These modules are all set up in a very similar way. On the left-hand side, we have our information. I can read all about this particular writing skill. And then on the right-hand side, we've got our interactive components. So we've got a video, which is the same video that we saw earlier in the sentences box. Then there is a 10-question quiz for the students to do, which tests their knowledge on the information that is here and in the video. There are also some interactive activities, and again, these are really great for the students to do independently on their own accounts, but also really fun to project up onto the board and do collaboratively as a class. The first one is a drag and drop activity, filling in the missing parts of the sentence, including the punctuation. And then the sentence train. If anyone's been exposed to the sentence train, you will know what I'm talking about here. It is a great way to teach the chunks of a sentence, how we order those chunks, and allows you to have those conversations around the correct use of punctuation in these sentence styles, keeping them grammatically correct, all of those sorts of important things. Okay, the fourth component of the module is the story challenge. Now, this is a story for the students to read. There is also a text-to-speak button hidden over here on the left-hand side that will read the story aloud to the students if that's helpful. And then they have 2 quizzes. They have a reading comprehension quiz and a writing quiz as well. So you can see the modules are pretty jam-packed, and you can use these however you wish. None of this is supposed to be extra to what you're already doing. It's not supposed to crowd your curriculum any further. This is supposed to support what you're already doing, the great things that you already do in your classrooms. You can come in and use these modules in a wide variety of ways. Some schools use them as a homework system, but otherwise you can come in and pick and choose the components that you use. All of the activities within the modules can be done over and over again, as you do get new questions each time. So if they've already done it, it's not a case of once and done. They can go back and continue to repeat those activities and engage with the modules multiple times. Okay, the next icon we're going to have a look at is the green admin button, the one with the little people in it. And we're going to get some classes set up for you. All we need to do is come in and click Create Class. So let's click the plus symbol. A couple of basic details are needed on the left-hand side here. You need to give it a class name. Now, some schools prefer to do this in a very consistent way. That might be a timetable code or teacher name, then class name, or whatever you decide. Okay, so put your class name in there and then choose the relevant year level. Now, you don't need to choose department. You can if you wish, but you can just leave that one. Of course, you'll want to choose an image that best reflects your class. I might go for this one, I think. And just one thing to be aware of, if you leave this box here ticked, your students can search for the class and enroll themselves into the class. But it's a very quick process for you to add the students. Okay, let's click Save. And that's the shell of the class now created. From here, we need to manage our students. So we're going to add some of our students in here. Click onto the green button with the little people in it. All you need to do here is start typing the first 2 letters of a student's name, and you'll see their name pop up, and you just click onto it and that's them added. I'll do that again. Start typing their name, there they are, click onto them, and they're added to your class. Once you've added a few students to your class, I'll get you to click Done so we can see where to go from here. Yours will look a little bit like this once you have all of your students added. Across the top, you can see there are a number of tabs. Let's have a look at what these do. The first one allows you to add other teachers. So if you share a class, if you team teach, if you have support in your class, or if you just want another teacher to be able to access your class for any reason, you can pop them in here. The next tab along allows you to create some smaller groups within this class. You perhaps might already use some groupings in your class for literacy rotations or differentiation activities. You can create those groups in here as well with small numbers of students. And that will allow you to send tasks, which we're about to have a look at in a moment, to these smaller groups as opposed to sending them to your whole class. It's a really nice way to support differentiation in your classroom. The next tab along is our Learning Journey Manager. When I said earlier that you've got a teacher view to track your students' completion of these modules, this is it. There is a lot going on this page, and we won't look at all of the different aspects today. But just as a bit of an overview, you can see that down the left-hand side, you've got all of the stages and all of the modules listed. Under the pink information button, you have curriculum links. Then we've got all of our tracking. You can see it works in a traffic light system initially, so you can follow it quite easily. I can also click onto any of these boxes and get the full breakdown. For example, we can see this student has had 2 attempts at this quiz and they're sitting at a certain percentage. These turn green once a student achieves over 80%. Then it recognises it as being complete. Visually, you can track that quite easily. I mentioned earlier that you can choose how your students access these learning journeys. We do that via these padlocks. You can see padlocks everywhere. This padlock here that's sitting directly next to the stage name is for my whole class. At the moment, I've got stage 1 unlocked for my class. And if you travel over, you can see each individual student is also unlocked. Same with stage 2. But when I get down to stage 3, I've locked that one. And that will mean that every subsequent stage is also locked beyond stage 3. If I'm ready to unlock that for my whole class, I can click this padlock button here, and you can see all of their individual ones have also unlocked. Alternatively, I might decide, no, I'm going to keep it locked for my whole class. They're not quite ready yet. However, I've got a couple of students that are really ready to move on for whatever reason. I can just come across and unlock their individual stages. Now, these two students can access stage 3 while the others still can't. You've got a bit of control that way. Your other option is you might have stage 3 onwards locked. However, there might be a module or a couple of modules right down in stage 7, for example, that are really relevant to what you're doing right now. And you want to make sure that your students can do those modules now. You don't want to unlock everything, but these modules are quite important. So I can come to that particular module. Maybe I really need to do this using subject language module. I can come over to this paper plane button, and if I click onto that, it will go green. Every student in my class has now received a notification with a direct link just to this specific module. There's quite a bit of flexibility in terms of how your students can access these modules and how much control you want to have over that. The last 3 tabs here are all data. This is data that you can access for your whole class. We've got some color-coded data, and we've also got the numeric data that sits behind it as well. Here is the overall snapshot data for this particular class. Then you've got a sentence graph for this class as well. You can look quite closely at which of the sentence styles your students are using, underusing, and overusing. Then, if I come back to the Student tab where all of my students are sitting, I can also click into an individual student. Let's have a look at this particular student. I can see their overall snapshot data, the same one that they can see. I can also see an individual sentence graph for them. I can also access this student's work folder. So if I want to access any piece of work that this student has done, I can come and do it here. Now, the really important thing here under their account tab is that you'll see initially a student's writing ability level is set to match their year level. But of course, we all know that we have a lot of students who are not necessarily working at their year level when it comes to writing. So you have the option to adjust a student's writing ability level. We can just edit and select what we want that level to be. For example, if I know that this student, yes, he's in grade 8, but he's really only working at a year 5 level when it comes to writing, I can set him to a year 5 writing ability level. And that's going to adjust a number of things on his account. Firstly, it will adjust the feedback that he gets. Instead of getting feedback at that year 8 level, he will now receive feedback at a year 5 level. It will also adjust the content within his learning journey and his modules. It will adjust things like the examples that he gets and the text that he gets to explain things. Now, I could of course do this the other way as well. I might think, right, this student really needs to be extended and pushed further, so I'm going to pop him up to year 10. And now, again, his account has adjusted up to that year 10 level. This is totally a teacher decision. The student doesn't have any control over that, and they can't see that this change has been made. Let's have a look at the final icon. Tasks are found under the yellow icon. Let's go through the process of building a task by clicking on Create New Task. To build a task, we work our way across the tabs along the top here. It's a bit like booking an airline ticket, almost as much fun as booking an airline ticket. We start by putting in our basic task information. I've created a little week 3 challenge for my students here. I'm just getting them to write a 6-sentence story in response to some images, and I'm encouraging them to use some different sentence styles. Now, I could put a lot more detail in there. I could scaffold it more if I wish to. You can put as much or as little as you would like in there. Then I need to select my year level. I'll pop this one on year 7. I can set a word length and target paragraphs if I would like to. And of course, I need to give it a due date before I can send it to my students. I can also attach some other resources here. This might be a task sheet, some extra scaffolding, or a reading to refer to. It says PDF, but you can actually attach other document types here as well. Word documents, PowerPoints, things like that. So if you want them to access this resource while they're doing this task, then we just pop it in there. The only exception to that is an image. If you would like to attach an image, we do that in a couple of steps time, so we'll hold off for now. Step 2 is our sequence. This is selecting which of those steps you want your students to have to do as part of this task. So, do you want them to do the mind map, the planning, and the writing? If not, you can just deselect whichever steps you don't want them to do. The secret here is to come straight down to Select Writing Tool and click into that first. This will allow you to choose which of the 8 writing tools you want your students to use for this particular task. I've selected Storyboard Writer because it's a really great one when we're responding to images. Then I come back and I can actually edit my mind map. So I can put the central topic in here so that it's already there for the students. Same with my plan. I can create however many planning boxes I want them to have. I can also label them. I can choose paragraph structures in there as well if I want to. This is all about setting it up so that it's ready to go for the students when they access the task. Step 3 is about customizing that right-hand side of the screen where all of the tools sit. I can do things like add a checklist. You could do this to break down all of the components of the task so that the students can tick them off as they go. Or it could be a success criteria. What does a really successful response to this task look like? I might just create an editing checklist with the things that I would like them to check in their work before they submit it. We also have a keywords list. This is great for subject-specific language, those words that they often forget to use, or key terminology words to incorporate. You can put extra scaffolding in there, facts, statistics, quotes, whatever you would like. I am creating a list of vocab words that my students could use in this response. This can be helpful for extending their vocabulary or providing some extra support to students who need the suggestions. Now onto the sentence styles. All 12 are selected because the tool is telling me that they are all suitable for Year 7 students in this case, but I can pick and choose. I can decide which ones the students are going to have access to for this task. The ones that I've deselected have now been removed from the sentences box, and they've also been removed from the sentence spinner. Paragraph styles, again, it's telling me that these are the ones that are suitable for Year 7 students, but I can pick and choose the ones that I want to provide them for this particular task. For my task, a 6-sentence story, I'd be choosing to remove it altogether, as they don't need to access the paragraph styles here. This is where we include our images. You can either pop an image that you have saved from your computer, or there is a huge gallery, hundreds of images here for you to choose from as well. Okay, that's the heavy lifting done. When you get to step 4, I like to go straight to demonstrate, because this is going to show me exactly what the students are going to see when they open up this task. You're seeing a student view here. So we can go through and check it over to pick up any errors that we might have made. I can check my mind map, check that the plan is set up as I wanted it, and then check the writing step. There's my keywords list, there's my checklist, my images are sitting here. So I can make sure it's all good to go. And then when I get to step 5, I've got a couple of options here. I can share this with other teachers, and that is gold. If you create an amazing Year 9 science task, share it on with all the other Year 9 science teachers and share that load a little bit. I can obviously choose to send it to my class, but I can also choose to send it to those smaller groups that we looked at earlier as well. If you're not quite ready to send it, just hit finish. It will save as a draft for you to come back to and work on later. There it is, sitting there for me now. Once a task is active, that is, once I've actually sent it to my class, I can come into the task and select the Submissions tab. Every student's response from my class will all be sitting here in this one folder. Now, yes, it does take a little bit of time to set up a task, but once I've got it set up, there are a lot of advantages for having done so. And this is one of them. Having all of their responses sitting in this one central place rather than having to go to their individual work folders is really handy. I can also click onto any of the students and I have a number of options here. I can just go in and view what they're doing. I can check their planning or I can check their writing progress, which is refreshed in current time. So if they were working on this in front of you in the classroom, you can view this from your account. I can also give the students direct feedback on their writing. I can come in and highlight and write comments. I can write general feedback, or I can even give it a grade if I want to, and send that feedback directly to the student. I can also check the most recent feedback that the tool gave the student. So if I want to know what the tool has said in order to support and supplement my feedback, then that is available as well. And finally, I can export this work. I can print or export these as PDF documents. So if you need this work saved externally from the program, if it's a draft or an assessment piece, for example, then you've got that ability as well. The final thing that I'll say here on the tasks is that you can duplicate them as well. If you're creating a similar task, don't start from scratch. Duplicate your existing task. That gives you an exact copy and allows you to just go in and make the small changes that you need to. Perhaps you're just changing an image and your keywords list, for example. You can work from a duplicated version and save yourself a little bit of time that way. Duplicating tasks is also a great way to differentiate the task for varying levels in your class. For example, perhaps this task is my core task. I could duplicate it and create a differentiated version with more scaffolding, perhaps some simpler vocabulary, to provide more support to a particular group of students. Then I could duplicate it again and create a higher level version of this task to extend another group of students. Then I can send each version to the relevant group. This ensures that all of my students are doing the same task, but at a differentiated level to meet their needs. If you would like some further help navigating the online tool, the other resource that you have available to you is our user help guide. This is a full suite of helpful videos that talk you through just about everything you need to know about the online tool. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this has been really useful. Please stick around for our 15-minute Q&A session to have all your questions answered. Happy toolboxing!